In the eyes of Mr. Trump and many Republicans, Harvard and other elite American universities have become echo chambers, places where students develop intolerance for political perspectives different from their own, as if they have their own when they're 18, and shield themselves from ideas they find objectionable. University leaders often say that criticism exaggerates the issue, claiming that critics want to perpetuate woke caricatures of university culture in order to win elections. Fine. There's 4 stellar sentences from the lying scoundrels at the New York Times. Let's just delve into this a little bit using some facts. In the eyes of Mr. Trump, that mega maniac, well, we already talked about the fact that 3% at best of faculty are conservative, and either 0 or 1% very conservative, and that the administration, and there's a lot more people in the administration than there are faculty members, they're even more skewed. So there's that. But let's look at the researchers here. 90% of faculty at elite institutions include DEI statements in applications. Many of them have tailored their research to align with DEI priorities. That means developing studies, for example, on racial disparities. And then let's talk a little bit more about how the researchers have responded to these DEI statements. Candidates with stronger DEI statements, which means more radically progressive and left, and also bigger lies, assuming that they weren't radically progressive left people and just filled these things out because they had to, as seen in Harvard's 2021 hiring of Sherry Charleston as its first chief diversity officer, despite plagiarism allegations. A high-profile example from UC Berkeley, that hellish joint. A high-profile example from UC Berkeley's Life Science Initiatives, 2018 to 2019, faculty search demonstrates the impact of DEI statements. In this initiative, 600 out of 900 applicants, about 70%, were eliminated. Hear that? Eliminated. That means their lives were altered severely. That means that despite having worked like mad as high school students and undergraduates and graduate students, having put in 20 years of work into being educated, they were eradicated from consideration for a top-tier job, regardless of their bloody research prowess. That's their publication record, which was the only true record of their capability. 70% of them were eliminated from consideration, stamp, gone. Because their DEI statements didn't what? Didn't please who? Exactly. How about the radical progressives who swarmed because they weren't doing their research to the bloody hiring committees? How about that? 70% were eliminated in the first round based solely on their DEI statements. So let's say you have some poor character who's got 20 publications when he emerges from graduate school. That's a stellar record. In fact, that's a record that's much better than Claudine Gay, who was made president of Harvard University, for example. So we're talking about people whose research records exceed that of the woman who was promoted to president at Harvard. Those people aren't going to be considered for a position at Berkeley and other high-level institutions because their allegiance to political belief was deemed improper or insufficiently craven. So don't tell me this is a bloody Trump problem. That's such a lie. The search committee used a rubric that prioritized candidates' knowledge of DEI, track record, and plans for advancing it. Right. Oh, yes. The last time I looked at the Engineering and Research Council grant application in Canada, it's frequently asked questions. It said this: if you have a lab that's notable for its diversity, which means if you've been as craven as you possibly could have in following every single bloody dictate that we imposed on you in the last 10 years, don't just rest on your laurels, because no matter how good a job you've done in the past, you could do better in the future. And so we don't want to see that you're already running a lab where minorities of the multiplicitous form that we insist upon existing are overrepresented. No matter how well you've done, that's not good enough. And your bloody DEI statement better indicate that no matter how craven you've been in the past, you should be a little more craven in the present. Sickening. Sickening. This case, highlighted in City Journal and National Association of Scholars reports, suggests DEI statements can be a significant gatekeeper. Yeah, well, there's something damned by faint praise. Faculty promotions increasingly hinge on DEI activities, sidelining traditional metrics like publication impact, which is really the metric that scientists have decided on over 100 years, best indexes their research productivity and ability. That's merit. That's the merit Garber's talking about when he said that American universities led the world, which they did in scientific research. Right, that's publication impact. Make no mistake about it. You prioritize anything over that, assuming the journals aren't corrupt, and they are corrupt now, so that's also a problem, then you're making everything worse. And maybe not just worse, maybe like failure worse. Because you don't go from great to mediocre. You go from great to useless. There's no intermediary slide. And so if you're not great as a scientist, you're basically useless. A 2023 Nature study found 40% of sciences, technology, engineering, and mathematics faculty, so that's the hardcore scientists, felt DEI overshadowed research quality. Right. So racial identity, sexual preference, et cetera, gender, choice, all these idiot group categories now overshadows research quality. Just think about that. And then think about whether that's something you want to devote your tax money to. Now, publishing. So when you do a scientific paper, and maybe that takes you 5 years, it depends on the complexity of the problem, and you're working on multiple issues at the same time, so you have a steady publication stream. If you're a great scientist, several a year. If you're a good scientist, at least one a year. You publish them, journals are ranked by quality, and then scientists evaluate their own papers to see when other scientists bother to pay attention to the publication and cite the paper. So one of the ways you determine whether a paper is impactful is by how many people refer to it, right? Logically. Okay, so that's the publication impact. So journals, including those tied to Harvard, prioritized DEI-themed papers. Okay, so now think about that. You won't get hired unless you're part of the right group, and the groups multiply endlessly. You won't get promoted if you're not part of the right group. You can't submit a grant unless you're willing to abide by the dictates and publicly state it that would prejudice the selection against you, even if you're not in one of those favored groups. And then now you can't publish, you can't do research on any topic that isn't racially, sexually, or otherwise group indicated. And if you did do that research, you couldn't get published. So now you tell me, oh, journalist from the New York Times, how that's not 100% rotten from the bottom right to the top, and how you could possibly fix that. Journals are skewed, the promotion is skewed, the research agenda is skewed, the grant application process is skewed, the hiring process is skewed, right? And then the administration is even more skewed. So how do you fix that? How do you fix that, folks? There's no fixing that. Not as far as I can tell. There's replacing it. That's why we made Peterson Academy.